trying to set up for this session and the laptop is frozen.
Sorry?
The laptop on the table is frozen with the slides from the last session.
My colleague is working on it.
Oh, he is? Okay.
Ich habe ja kurz hier gesessen, ja.
Mikros, die auf dem Tisch sind, die 2 Handmikrofone, eins hier, eins vorne auf dem runden Tisch.
Hi everyone, if you're here for including coastal ecosystems and NDCs for mitigation and adaptation, we will be starting the event in just a minute.
Red pill or blue pill? Good afternoon, everybody. We will start shortly. Okay. So good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Can you hear me? A bit louder? I'm not accused of being quiet often. I think we know this by the alignment of the audience to the door, but a quick show of hands. Who's going to the Ocean Climate Dialogue after this? Excellent.
All hands should be up.
All hands should be up. Okay. So first up, a big thank you to all of you for being here. My name is Tom Hickey. I work for the Pew Charitable Trusts, and alongside our friends from RARE, CI, Wetlands International, and TNC, very pleased to be putting on this discussion today. I would have said it was timely, but it's so timely that it now overlaps directly. It will be a discussion that is a little more truncated than we originally anticipated, but very pleased that you're all still able to be here. I had intended to share some brief remarks on how incredible these ecosystems are, the triple benefit of climate mitigation, adaptation, and resilience. But timings aside, I don't think they need any rehearsing. Everyone here is very familiar with those benefits. And perhaps the only thing I will offer, just by way of introduction, is just to situate those benefits in a broader significance, and that is of the dialogue. We are all here today because we care very much about these ecosystems, and we believe that they have a huge impact. And are very excited to hear about some of the country initiatives taking action that we're hearing more and more about in this place. But we're also, all of us, going to be scootling off to New York directly after this because we appreciate that these ecosystems have that greater significance within the context of how do we mainstream ocean action within the UNFCCC. So the scheduling, while frustrating, is probably quite telling. I was struck last night by Julio Cordano, who unfortunately can't be here, but deserves great acknowledgement for his leadership on these issues in saying that what countries need now is concrete examples of action and how we translate some of that potential into meaningful progress. I'm very pleased that we've got an excellent panel here to help us share some of those experiences extremely briefly. Before we do so, though, we have that broader institutional perspective, and very pleased to hand the floor to our dear friend Joanna Post.
Thanks, Tom. Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Joanna Post. I'm Ocean Lead here at the UNFCCC Secretariat. I feel like I know most of you, even those in the audience. We've been on a journey with ocean in the UNFCCC since the Paris Agreement. It should have been a lot longer, considering that the protection of ecosystems is an important part of the FCCC Convention itself. But the word ocean came into the Paris Agreement for the very first time as that word in 2015, really, in the conversations, but not really in the action. And we had the Chile COP in COP25, which on the back of the SROC report from the IPCC mandated for ocean dialogue to really look at how to implement mitigation adaptation action. That dialogue happened virtually because we all experienced COVID between the Chile COP, and so that dialogue took place in 2020 in December. And then on the back of that, we worked very closely, and I see members of the UK COP presidency in the audience, with the UK COP presidency, who really helped us push the conversation to bring ocean and anchor it in under the UNFCCC political process. Extremely important outcome from COP26, which then mandated for an annual ocean dialogue. COP26 also mandated for the UNFCCC work streams and constituted bodies to include ocean in their work. There's not been that much integration so far. I think the tech is one of the few examples. So I really encourage you to push those conversations to parties, because it really is a cross-cutting topic that should be there everywhere. Moving to last year, COP27, the mandate, which is now COP and CMA mandate, is urging parties to include ocean in their national goals, national climate goals, and the implementation of those goals. COP27 also mandated for two co-facilitators, Niall and Julio, who you'll see no doubt this afternoon at the Ocean Dialogue, to lead the work this year and next year on the Ocean Dialogue. And what's important also is there's now a space in conjunction with COP for our co-facilitators to report back the outcomes of the dialogue to COP. So we're really now at an action phase. We're really now at the sort of digging down, what does ocean action look like in national action in the FCCC process? How do we break down the silos and bring that conversation to make sure that we, as humanity, build together climate resilient marine spatial planning for countries? And the country-driven process, or the party-driven process, the UNFCCC, has that opportunity to really push that conversation now. Particularly, in some ways, the lack of that conversation in GST shows you how important it is to push that message to COP this year. So I have a timing issue, as we all do today. They moved the Ocean Climate Dialogue an hour earlier. I was informed, not asked. So we're working with a change, moving schedule. I have to go now and set up, so everything's ready for the Ocean Dialogue in 45 minutes. I invite you all to New York. It's going to be fun. We're going to have some very exciting, interesting speakers over the next couple of days. We're also going to be breaking out into small discussions groups to really deep dive into what parties should be doing around ocean action. And there are two topics that are covered in the Ocean Dialogue. One is more or less what's on the screen here, looking at ecosystem restoration and blue carbon. And the second topic is really looking at aquatic food, fisheries and food security. So I encourage you all to come join us at 2 o'clock in New York today. Thank you very much to Tom and the team for inviting me here. And forgive me, I'm going to have to leg it. Pass the floor back to Tom.
Okay, thank you, Joe. So we're going to confound expectations here. This is going to be a quick, snappy panel. We will get you all to the dialogue on time. I've walked it twice this morning. You can do it in a whisker over 2 minutes. So at 1:58, we will have you out the door. I'm going to hand over to our excellent panel. We have amazing perspectives from Indonesia, from Global Mangrove Watch, and from Panama. And we have two fantastic moderators in Jill and Lisa. So without further ado, over to you guys.
Great. Well, thank you, Tom. I think that what we'll do, also in the interest of time, we'll allow our panelists here. We'll introduce them and allow them to provide some introductory remarks, and then we'll move into a Q&A session. But as we've already heard, we will certainly have to cut it a little short to allow everyone to get back to the Ocean Climate Dialogue in time. And so what we're encouraging everyone to think about is to think about those questions for our excellent panelists here, and to then bring some of that energy and those questions with us into the dialogue as well. So we're hoping to view this more as an extended opportunity rather than a shortened one. And so who are we having first? Maybe we'll start down the line, and if you can introduce yourself and start off, I think. Sorry. Oh, and I'm
Negotiations
so sorry,
and commitments matter.
video first.
What happens on the international stage directly affects what happens at the local level, where efforts to protect and manage our ocean have the greatest impact. Nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, feed into international negotiations. What happens on the international stage directly affects what happens at the local level. Negotiations and commitments matter. What happens on the international stage directly affects what happens at the local level. 70 countries, where efforts to protect space and manage our ocean international marine is a critical part of the process. Nationally determined, helping to break down or silence limits and not feed into international accelerate action target, which then inform local. Countries have to act now. Working together in this more than 70 countries should be enhancing. Negotiations and commitments matter. What happens on the international stage directly affects what happens at the local level, where efforts to protect and manage our ocean have the greatest impact. More than 70 countries have submitted an NDC referencing coastal and marine climate solutions. However, current NDC commitments are not enough to keep the 1.5 degrees C target within reach. Countries have to act now to implement current commitments, but should be enhancing their ambition to include blue carbon ecosystems, such as mangroves, tidal marshes, and seagrass in their climate action plans to accelerate ocean climate action and deliver the positive impact it can have on people and nature. Negotiations and commitments matter. What happens on the international stage directly affects what happens on the international stage directly.
Apologies for our technical difficulties here. So we have an excellent set of panelists here, and we will get started. Jill, will you? Is this our order now?
Yes, so we'll get started with some introductory remarks, brief remarks from our panelists. Belen, if you would like to introduce yourself and get started, and then we'll have Pak Youssef and Susanna from Wetlands International. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, everybody here, and also the audience on online streaming. I'm Belén Castillo from the Ministry of Environment of Panama. I work at the Mitigation Department within the Ministry of Environment. And it's a pleasure to be here to share some of our experience, including coastal wetlands and coastal marine ecosystems within the national determined contributions in our country. For us, ocean is really important, and our history is really embedded with one of the oceans. We developed our first NDCs on 2016. It was the first document, the first draft document submitted to the convention and the secretariat, sorry. And after that, we developed what is considered our national and actual NDC submitted in the 2020, which was marked by the post-COVID or during COVID era. So we developed around 29 goals and targets. But within this 29 targets, we included coastal marine ecosystem. We divided these targets in 10 sectors. One of these sectors was the coastal and marine systems. Within this sector, we developed three commitments. One was to include the IPCC 2013 supplement within our national GSG inventory, which was a really challenge, as actually we had a lot to work to do within the national GSG inventory system and the national GSG inventory team. However, this was like a target settled, and we actually last year we made the first estimations for GSG emissions using the chapter number 4 of the IPCC 2013 supplement. And the other commitment was related to mangrove restoration guidelines. National mangrove restoration guidelines also was held and published on 2021. After that, then the third commitment, NDC commitment, it was to develop a technical guide for climate change within the coastal and marine system, which is now what we are working on, because actually we decided, due to the urgency and the call that was made during COP in Glasgow, we decided to work on to strengthen these commitments, the 29 commitments already in the NDC, and now we are working on a new NDC that will be submitted on probably on next year, or depends on the work that we have been doing. We have been working with different stakeholders, different sectors, to gather all information related to comply or to fulfill these targets already established in the NDC from 2020, but reinforced with new targets, new goals, and more ambitious goals for this new NDC. And within this new NDC, regarding the coastal marine systems, we are also trying to set new targets. And in this case, discussions have been held around the marine protected area. We have 48 marine protected areas, and we found could be a great opportunity to develop the management plans for these marine protected areas. Some of them do not have management plans. So instead of looking at this as a barrier, we decided this is an opportunity to include mitigation and adaptation spheres within the national management plan. So that's one of the things we are discussing internally to strengthen this new NDC regarding coastal marine ecosystem, to work on marine protected areas. The technical guide that, because of some constraints, was not started, we decided to transform it into a sectoral plan for climate change on this sector. I mean, sectoral plan, sectors, okay. But decided to work on this with the adaptation team, but also taking into account co-benefits for mitigation. As well as the national, as we develop the national guide for mangrove restoration, now the new target will be to implement mangrove restoration. It's not that we haven't worked in mangrove restoration, of course, but we need to make sure what we are doing. We need to establish the baseline and to see how much we advance in restoration. So monitoring is something that we're also taking into account. And the other area or topic that we are also taking into account is seagrasses. We always focus on mangroves as we are a developing country. Our science and knowledge is more focused on mangroves as is one of the more studied ecosystem in our country. However, there are not too much studies related to seagrasses. That's why one of the starting point will be to map seagrasses. And that could be, we're discussing to implement this or to set this as a target or goal within our NDC, to map the extent of seagrasses, to establish a national plan for monitoring how much seagrasses we have. And then the next step will be how much we're going to protect of these seagrasses, how much we can protect and how much we can conserve in that case. And yeah, this is some of the things we're doing around NDC. Of course, we're doing some other things related to the ocean. This year, we also launched the National Ocean Policy as well, who's working on 5 strategic pillars. And this was around the framework of our Ocean Conference, which was held in Panama in March of this year. So oceans-based solutions is part of an important part of the national targets, not only within NDC, but also in other areas as well. And thank you for inviting us, because for Panama, as I mentioned earlier, is really important to work on ocean-based solutions for not only tackle climate change, but also to work it in a cross-cutting way with other conventions as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Glenn. It really is inspiring and very intriguing and thought-provoking to see Panama's leadership in this space and continued efforts to, with marine protected areas and other aspects of coastal conservation and restoration. So thanks for sharing that background. We will have questions for you soon, but first would like to hear from our 2 other panelists for introductory remarks. Next we have Pak Yusuf from Indonesia, the Director of Coastal and Small Island Utilization. Please, Pak Yusuf, feel free to introduce your work a little bit further and share your opening remarks. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jill. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Muhammad Yusuf. I'm the Director of Coastal and Small Island Utilization, Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries of Republic of Indonesia. My responsibility ranging from the managing disaster mitigation and climate change, coastal ecosystem restoration, marine debris, small and most other island utilization, and empowering customary coastal community. Let me start my presentation by quoting Alongi et al.'s statement in 2015, which stated that together Indonesia's seagrass and mangrove conservatively account for 70% of the world blue carbon reservoir. The latest data also shows that Indonesia has 3.3 million hectares of mangroves and approximately 1.8 million hectares of seagrass meadow. Therefore, Indonesia put a great deal of attention to the ecosystem, including by counting the ecosystem into NDC. As a concrete action for the Paris Agreement commitment, in 2016, Indonesia launched the first NDC. The target is to reduce GHG emission from business as usual scenario from 29% unconditionally or 41% conditionally in 2030. The document already counted GHG emission reduction from the above grown mangrove biomass. It counted under the forest and other land use sector. In April 2021, Indonesia launched the updated NDC. No increased ambition, but it recognized the importance of the coastal ecosystem in the adaptation process. The document contains goals for increasing coastal resilience through implementing ecosystem-based adaptation in coastal zone development and integrated management of mangrove ecosystem, restoring degraded coastal zone as essential ecosystem and improving livelihoods of communities living in or depending on coastal area. Also in 2021, Indonesia enacted a presidential regulation number 98 of 2021 on implementation of carbon pricing for the purpose of achievement Indonesian national determined contribution and the control of greenhouse gas emission in national development. It serves as a regulatory basis to include blue carbon in Indonesian NDC. Further, the regulation provision mandate the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries to implement both mitigation and adaptation action on ocean sector, including the blue carbon. It means to achieve the NDC target. Next, in 2022, Indonesia launched the enhanced NDC. It increased the GHG reduction ambition from 29% to 30.8% unconditionally and 41% to 43.2% conditionally. And next year, in 2024, Indonesia's second NDC is scheduled to launch in advance of the 2025 NDC updated cycle. It is opportunity for Indonesia to evaluate our current blue carbon commitment and implementation progress and strengthen or include blue carbon for the first time. Since blue carbon from mangrove already included in NDC, Indonesia now focus on blue carbon from seagrass meadow. The biggest challenges that we face in blue carbon ecosystem degradation for mangrove, the rehabilitation target is set up 600,000 hectares until 2025. Another challenge is updating seagrass maps and developing seagrass rehabilitation methodology. We need to improve the methodology by keep up the technology and innovation development, as well as capacity building for human resources. Indonesia are currently leading the process to update Indonesia's NDC by 2024 to include blue carbon ecosystem, particularly seagrass, as part of mitigation action. To achieve this, Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries is working with development partners such as UNDP, universities such as IPB, donors such as Pakat Foundation, NGOs such as Conservation International, Conservasi Indonesia, and GGGI. And we are continue to open our hands to be able to work together and strengthen the cooperation in future. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Yusuf. It's great to hear that Indonesia is not only looking to enhance inclusion of blue carbon, including mangroves, but also looking towards seagrass and what type of commitments could be included for seagrass and NDCs. And we will share some resources at the end of this panel and via email afterwards, including some guidelines that CI and Pew and RARE and TNC and many partners have put together on how to include coastal blue carbon ecosystems in NDCs. So thank you very much for those remarks. Susanna Toll from Wetlands International will now speak about some additional resources and partnerships for these ambitions. And over to you, Susanna. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much. Lisa, can I ask you to help me with the slides? Or can I control?
We can actually give you this control.
Oh, okay, that's
Thank you.
easier. Yeah. Yes, hello everyone. My name is Susanna Tol from Wetlands International, and I'm happy to be here to be able to present to you the Global Mangrove Watch. The Global Mangrove Watch is an online remote sensing data and monitoring platform for catalyzing the protection and restoration of mangroves. It is the most complete and up-to-date mangroves map worldwide. And it gives access to near real-time information about, amongst others, the location, the extent, the status, and the values of mangroves for every country that has mangroves across the world. And these data are of great added value because there is no other global platform that provides this data at the global scale. And also, many countries do not have their own national and up-to-date monitoring platform or tool for mangroves. There are some countries, but the majority doesn't have that. And without reliable and up-to-date data, the planning and reporting of effective mangrove conservation and restoration is a challenge, and also on the local ground, especially for remote areas. The data in the Mangrove Watch is consistent for every country. So that means that you can actually accurately compare between regions and countries, and that's much easier than when comparing data from different sources. The Global Mangrove Watch is a tool that is free for everyone to use, and it's also very easy to use. And it's possible for countries and for other users to download key data sets which can be used for communication purposes. So there are many different data layers in the Global Mangrove Watch. The available data layers you see on the left, and there are also more data layers coming in future iterations. The ones that I marked yellow, I will present in this event, but I'm inviting you to also visit the Global Mangrove Watch yourself, especially if you're practitioners. There are many layers that are useful for you. So who are the users or the target audiences of the watch? At the local level, you can think about practitioners like coastal managers, and they can use the Global Mangrove Watch for informing their management plans and their restoration plans. At a global scale, the Global Mangrove Watch can be used to assess the collective global progress on mangrove action. And you can also identify how we can collectively increase our ambition and action. For the national scale, governments can use several layers to find the data they need to integrate mangroves into their national plans, such as the revision of their NDCs, but also like national management plans and strategies, like I heard before for the other speakers. The Mangrove Watch can also be used to identify the priority areas for protection, for enhanced protection and for restoration. For national greenhouse gas inventories and for national and domestic reporting. So I will dive now into some of the layers that are directly of use for NDCs. First of all, that's the mangrove extent layer. It's one of the very useful data layers for countries, as it provides the annual data from 1996 onwards on the national extent of mangrove habitat. And also the length of the coast with mangroves. You can see here an example from Costa Rica. And you can adjust the years. So for the year that you want to see the data, you can make that adjustment in the tool. And governments can use this to set the baseline for their targets and for reporting on progress against those targets under the UNFCCC. By the way, it can also be used for global biodiversity framework, of course, and for goals under the Ramsar Convention. So these layers provide input for national plans and also to seek for synergies between those plans. This layer also shows the locations of the mangroves per country, and this helps to include key priorities for mangrove interventions into updated NDCs. Next layer is a mangrove change map, and it enables governments to track how the extent of mangroves have changed over time. And this is also, as of 1996, provides annual data. And in the case of Costa Rica, as you see on the screen, there has been a decline from about 8 square kilometers between 1996 and 2020. And here you can also change the years. And governments can use this for their inventory reporting and also for establishing a baseline for their national commitments. Furthermore, the maps can be used to visualize the impact of mangrove restoration and conservation efforts. So there's a policy dashboard which provides several layers. And one of the layers is the blue carbon layer. And this describes the quantity and the density of carbon stored in mangrove biomass and mangrove soil at the national and the global scale. And with this tool, governments can review their carbon stocks of their mangroves at the national level and include how they contribute to their targets and report on this. There is an emission mitigation layer as well, and it shows a government the emission mitigation potential for mangrove interventions compared to interventions from non-mangrove related interventions in the land use sector, such as for grasslands and peatlands. And this can inform a government how mangrove restoration, as well as avoiding or reducing the loss and degradation of mangroves, can contribute to emission reduction targets in their NDCs. There's a layer called the carbon market potential layer, and through this layer, governments can estimate the area of mangrove forest that can qualify for blue carbon financing that is financially sustainable for 30 years. And these are the areas that are under imminent threat of loss or decline if left unprotected. So this helps to understand the potential for blue carbon finance to be used towards the mitigation goals in the NDC. There is a new layer called the Restoration Potential Tool, and it provides guidance on the areas that have the greatest potential for mangrove restoration. And these are the locations that where mangroves used to be and where the conditions are still suitable for restoration. And so you see, for example, for Panama, that's 2.5% of the total mangrove area that gets the positive scoring. The layer also has some other information about mangrove restoration, like loss drivers, in this case, non-productive conversion. And it calculates what ecosystem services can be gained upon restoration. Finally, there is a layer called the international status, and it provides the national status report of a country of integration of mangroves in the international policy commitments. And here we see an example from Panama, where you can see that Panama has included coastal ecosystems into their NDC, and that it is using the IPCC wetland supplement for reporting of its emissions, and that mangroves are part already of their national forest definition. And these elements can support the improvement of the government's reporting and the greenhouse gas inventory, reporting like the biannual transparency report, for instance. So these are the layers that I wanted to show to you from the Global Mangrove Watch. I hope it encourages you to also start to take a look at the Global Mangrove Watch to see how it can help you and how it can be complementary to national monitoring tools for those countries that have that. So there is a QR code where you can that you can scan, and then you can get easy access to the platform. We developed a number of policy briefs. One is on the content of my presentation, so how to use Mangrove Watch for NDCs. And there are two more. One is focused on MBSAPs, and one is focused on Ramsar Convention. So I'd like to thank you very much. And I'd like to briefly introduce Luz Gill. Luz and I are part of the Global Mangrove Alliance, and we are part of the team that has been launching the Global Mangrove Breakthrough in COP27. The Mangrove Breakthrough is a collaboration together with the high-level champions under the Race to Zero and the Race for Resilience. And we are working on a roadmap towards COP28 to present like the Secretariat, the finance mechanism, etc. This year we are meeting with a lot of countries to get aligned with the Mangrove Breakthrough to become part of the movement. So I'm inviting, if you're interested to talk about it, to meet with me and Luz after the event. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Susanna. I mean, data availability and access is a huge challenge across many of the issues and ecosystems we work on, and this resource is clearly available and a wonderful tool to help countries in achieving these goals. So thank you very much. Next up, we have Mr. John Canna, the NDC coordinator for the government of Liberia. John, we're glad you could join us, and please proceed with some brief remarks, and then we're going to have a few moments for Q&A at the end before we head to the dialogue. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sorry for coming late. It is due to the email I received. I actually saw 2 o'clock, so sorry. But it is great to be here and to share with you experiences from Liberia when it comes to our coastal ecosystem. We all know that the ocean and adjacent ecosystem provide enormous services to society, including food provision, natural shoreline protection against storms and floods, water quality upkeep, support of tourism and other cultural and spiritual benefits, and maintenance of the basic global life system. We all can state the importance of mangroves, we all know. For our country, we updated our NDC sometime in 2021, just like many other countries. And in our NDC, we outlined about 9 sectors, but today we will be speaking to you basically about 2 of the sectors, looking at the coastal zone sector and then that of the fishery sectors, because those are the ones that we are concerned with today in this discussion. And the EPA, on the other hand, where I come from as the NDC coordinator, is the designated authority that is working to ensure that we are able to raise the necessary climate finance to implement our own NDC. That's why we are here today, to participate in this meeting and to also share with you what we have done. So Liberia submitted her NDC with the goal to reducing her emission by 64% below the projected business as usual by 2030. And in the NDC, we captured the coastal zone sector, and then we outlined activities that we intend to undertake up to 2024. We'll be revising the current NDC by next year. And so I just thought to share with you what we have been able to do so far. We all know that climate change is the reason why we are here. We all left our homes to come and sit here to discuss on ways that we can tackle the issue of climate change and then find the best solution so that we all can survive in the face of climate change. In our NDC, we said we captured the coastal zone sector because already, if you go to Liberia, we are faced with the issue of sea level rise. And we have 3 of our coastal counties that have been affected by climate change. And we have been able to undertake projects to protect our coastline from the adverse impact of climate change. So in our NDC, the main reason why we even capture it, just as I said in my opening statement, because it is important to us, and we have about 58% of our population that reside along the coast of the country, and they depend heavily on those ecosystems for their own survival. And mangroves being one of the resources that they use, basically for heating and then for drying of fish and for their own livelihood. And so in our NDC, we were able to capture that, looking at the socio-economic importance, looking at the environmental importance, the cultural importance of mangroves, and then looking at recreational activity around mangroves, and also looking at how we can reduce the ecosystem degradation. Because as they are using mangrove, it's also causing problems. So we were able to capture that so that we can be able to have total control over the protection of mangroves, even though we have it as part of our national obligation to protect wetlands and to even set it aside as a key biodiversity area. But we're able to put it in our NDC so that we can have we can leverage the opportunity to be able to protect it more. So in the NDC, there are few things that we are doing currently with our coastal zone. So we have designed and implementing green infrastructure when it comes to our mangrove ecosystem, our coastal zone. And then we intend that we will be able to reduce the impacts on mangrove by 60% by 2030 within our NDC. So currently we have two major projects that we are implementing. We have one we call the Monrovia Metropolitan Coastal Resilience Project. And this project is focusing basically on vulnerable communities, looking at how the government can impact around 250 people who are living close to the ocean. That is a community in Monrovia called West Point. So it's a GCF-sponsored project that is currently ongoing. And then we also have one in Sino County, because Sino is one of the coastal counties, as I mentioned, that is affected by climate change. And so we have a project from Jeff that we are currently implementing as part of our NDC. And then there are other activities also supported by UNDP and Conservation International, and we are happy today to be here to share with you those activities. So we have the NCA project that Conservation International is undertaking to protect our mangrove space. We intend to set up our first marine protected area looking at the Marshall wetland. And so that is ongoing. We know there are challenges that we are faced with, and we all are here to discuss and learn from each other the challenges that you face, the one that we face, so that we can find common ground and be able to learn from you and go back home and be able to implement those activities that we already plan to do. And then we intend to also develop marine spatial plan for the country. There are many countries, like I've been to Vietnam. I know Vietnam had done a lot when it comes to marine spatial plan and planning activities along the coast. We don't have that. So in our NDC, we're able to capture activity to come up with our marine spatial plan. And on the NCA project implemented by Conservation International, we are going to develop our first marine spatial plan, which will now help us to even protect our coastline. And then we also have mitigation project within along the coast. We intend to reduce GHG emission by harnessing the mitigation co-benefit of fisheries, of the fisheries sector, and then looking at adaptation targets and to develop systems to measure and track the benefits that will come from those sectors. So on that, we have some activity to promote renewable energy technology for off-grid community. We have community that harvest mangrove just to smoke fish. And so we intend to develop technology that will be smart enough so that they can use most of the mangroves. And there is unconfirmed report. It is not published yet from Conservation International. We have lost already 25% of our mangroves. And then even with the 75% that we have, they are fragmented. So you can already see that we have serious problem with mangrove ecosystem, which is very key to us. And that's why we included the coastal zone into our NDC. Under the CR project, they intend to develop programs to provide training about incentive for fishing folks to adapt eco-stove fish dryers to reduce GHG emission and discourage mangrove deforestation from usual methods by 2025. We are hoping that Conservation International can be able to achieve this before we even update the current NDC. And through this project, they are going to be providing financial support to selected communities. And then they're going to enhance and establish 8 coastal fishing cooperatives. They're also going to strengthen the fish value and supply chain, and where possible, assist in scaling up women business. As we speak, through the World Bank, we were able to secure some funding to establish fishery program at the University of Liberia from our NDC as part of the NDC target. And so capacity building is key for our country, and then we are doing that currently. For for the sectors I just named, we would need the total sum of $54,850,000 to implement activities within the NDC for the coastal zone sector. And we also need about $26,700,000 for the fishery sector. So if you combine the two figures, you can see what we need to implement our activities around this thing. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my hope that we all will not give up even when the climate financing basket continue to be empty due to empty promises by this current generation of leaders. But before I close and then give chance to the next speaker, let us be reminded that climate change will continue to pose serious problems to us, and the only way we can fight back is to stop talking too much and take practical action now and not tomorrow or the day after, but now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Don, for those remarks. It is really wonderful to look to Liberia as a leader in this space, and really fantastic to see the shift from NDC commitments to implementation and the continued ambition. So in the matter of time we have left, passing it to Lisa, and then we will get everyone to the Ocean Climate Dialogue.
Thanks, Jill, and thank you again to all of our panelists here. It's really inspiring to hear how everyone is working to really bring a grounded reality to this process, and vice versa, being able to really make action happen on the ground. I think that what we've heard from all of our panelists here is that the coastal ecosystems is really a cross-cutting sector across climate change, biodiversity, sustainable development, fisheries, community livelihoods. And there's really an immense opportunity to protect, restore, and sustainably manage the coastal ecosystems, whether that's seagrasses or mangroves. And we're really excited to be able to be part of this biodiversity climate nexus, and be able to drive the ocean climate solutions forward as part of this process and as part of our actions on the ground. And so with that, I encourage everyone to scan this QR code, which has a number of really exciting upcoming and current resources, including the guidance for NDCs for blue carbon that Jill mentioned earlier. There's a green-gray new infrastructure resource that's also there, and there's a link to a webinar launch of the special report on blue carbon that the Ocean Panel recently commissioned, as well as a number of the materials that Susanna talked about from the Global Mangrove Watch, among others. And so please feel free to scan this and find us throughout the conference or after this as we go to the Ocean Climate Dialogue. So with that, thank you again for coming, and we are here for any questions now and at the dialogue. So thank you again to everyone.